Welcome back to the Last Call podcast. I am your host, Arthur G. Today we are deep diving into the world of blended Scotch with a brand that is essentially written in the modern playbook on maturation, blending, and breaking the rules. Dewar's. I'm sure you recognize the brand. You've seen it on shelves everywhere. To help us unpack the science of double aging and the sheer art of the blend, I'm thrilled to sit down with Gabe Cardarella. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Names matter, and I suck at this. Gabe is the North American brand ambassador for Dewar's, but his path to becoming a whiskey educator is less than your typical story. Spanning from his early days in promotions to tour managing members of the Jackass crew down in California and Mexico, Gabe eventually found himself returning to Scotland to be inducted into the Keepers of the Quaich in 2024, one of the highest honors in Scotch whiskey industry. In this episode, we're going to geek out over Dewar's pioneering double aging, the double aging process, the meticulous 4-stage maturation of the double series, and the genius of their record-breaking Master Blender Stephanie McLeod. Plus, we've got a stellar tasting lined up. We'll be working our way through the classic 12, 15, and I'm skipping ahead to the 21. Thanks to Kelly for the hookup. And of course, gonna have some fun along the way. So whether you're a seasoned malt maniac or you're just starting your whiskey journey, pour yourself a dram and settle in and enjoy the conversation with Gabe today. Gabe, how are you doing, my friend?
Great, Arthur. And by the way, you pronounced the name perfectly. Not the most Scottish last name in the world, Cardarella, but here we are.
Perfect. You see, names matter, man. I always have, no, it's fine. No, I got to get it right. So,
you did good this time around, my friend.
I'm going to put that. There's a record somewhere I'm keeping about it. Gabe, man, so tell us about yourself, man. You are the North American brand ambassador, but there's so much more to that.
Oh, yeah. 16 years, what I thought would be a means to travel the world and get paid to do it turned out to be, something that has become a really big, important pillar in my life. I think, the common thread for me, it's always been people. Touring, you're in a different city every night, different rooms, different energy. And you learn pretty quickly that if you don't connect, nothing else really kind of matters. You can have everything lined up, but if the room's not with you, you feel it right away. Whiskey for me, it's not that much different. I always think about, these nights that I have with friends where we're, sitting outside by a fireplace or after dinner out on a patio, nothing planned, just a couple friends or my dad and I, one bottle just kind of getting passed around. Nothing rare, nobody, breaking it down and tasting notes and what the distillation times were, fermentation times. Just one of these nights that you have where everything slows down and conversation gets better. That's when I started to realize, okay, this is much more than just intrinsic value. Whiskey is much, much more than what is in the blend. What are the shape and size of your stills? And those sorts of things really stick with me and have kind of helped me really become much more than a whiskey educator, but just somebody that's just passionate about bringing people together. I've had better whiskeys, in my life since that maybe one fire pit whiskey with a friend. I'm sure it was a Dewar's white label, or perhaps it was, something that we didn't even really pay attention to. It was just whiskey at the time. Mm-hmm. But, some whiskeys that you consider better don't always stay with you the same way as the one that's just in your hands with friends and family. So, over time, I've started to look at this just as less as just education and more so as really a hospitality, passionate about both. But part of the job is to explain the whiskey, right? Like that's the baseline. Yeah. But if that's all you're doing, it kind of just stops there. The part that matters is making sure for me that it actually means something in the moment that you're in. And that's, I think, the difference between knowing a lot about the category, Scotch, whiskey in general, and actually caring about it. I've been around long enough to just where I happen to have both, which I'm pretty proud of. And in that 16 years, it's been quick, but it's been really special to see where a brand like Dewar's has been to where it's going.
you do listen to the show, because exactly our point here, right? Like this, it's more than just a spirit and a label. Like we say it all the time, that you're making memories, you're putting pins in time. Like, hey, this is, and that's perfectly said about, it should be more than education, because I think people who just memorize a script are often figured out quick, right? You know, when a rep comes and says, hey, I want to talk to you about this spirit. It's like, you memorize lines and you press and you talk a little bit more and tell me about this. And it's like, oh, I'm not sure. Oh, and you could tell that it's not something they're really passionate about, and they're just pushing a brand.
It is, look, as much as I wish that I were, but my father's a physician. I'm not the one saving lives here. You know what I mean? This stuff is not meant to be taken too seriously, but at the same time, when you really care about what it can be, meaning it's much more than just liquid in a bottle. Once you start wrapping your head around this liquid is a conversation between time, people, and place. It's not just an age statement. So this isn't just me doing my homework on the show. This is me, how I feel about the whiskey. And when I talk with folks and I have them try it, I wish I could blindfold them, because I don't want to hear their preconceived notion. I just want to put it in front of them and say, let's talk. I think that goes a long way. I wish I could do it. Now, I think people would be a little uncomfortable with me blindfolding them before I put a whiskey in front of them. But you understand my point here.
Drink this liquid. What?
Right.
Gabe? Like, what kind of party is this?
What kind of ambassador is this?
Yeah. No, but you're 100%. I agree with you. I think that there's a passion that you can tell when someone cares about a product. There's a little bit where I like to always give props and praise to the people who work so hard to make these spirits for us and to make it so we can enjoy it. To them, it's super serious business, right? To them, it's their life. There's their every day. They meticulously, but they love it. I've never met a master distiller that's like, another grind. It's something that they're not just checking a box. They're not just punching in and out. They are enjoying it. They know that the memories that they're helping make, and they take pride in every single step of it. It's a painstaking process.
And you bring up an important point to make here. I'm not the one making the stuff. Mm-hmm. That for me is like talking to Stephanie McLeod, our master blender, and telling her, let's say she's a painter and I can't even draw a stick figure. You know what I mean? And telling her how to paint the picture.
100%.
What they're doing, what my job is to ensure that what she's creating with her wonderful team out of Glasgow and the blending center in Scotland for Dewars, that it translates to not only what we're talking about now together within our liquid, our history, what we stand for, what we're passionate about, what our credentials are in terms of history and how we produce our whiskey, but to ensure that it's being represented to the best standard in which they look at the whiskeys in which they're creating in Scotland. So you have quite a responsibility. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm not the one making them. I certainly love them.
Yeah.
I'm a big Dewar's white label drinker, which I'm sure you were planning on asking me, and I'll get into the why, but later. But I think the beautiful thing that I found about this in my career is that, I thought my job was to kind of, dance, monkey dance, go do this whiskey tasting, go do this. And I learned that I could create a style based on my own personal beliefs and trust and love for this brand that I found over the years. And create one that really resonates with folks and gets them to rethink whether it's perception of the category, perception of the brand, mm-hmm. and to challenge some of the ways that they actually think about what is good, mm-hmm. What is the best. And truly, the answer is quite simple. It's the one that's in your hands, first of all. But Dewars is really one of these brands that has had some of these interesting perspectives over generations that I love being in conversation about. And that authenticity isn't something that's created in a marketing department. People name their dogs after this brand. I've done tastings over Zoom during COVID for people's no-nos, their no-nos. I've done grandparents. I've met people's kids that said the first time they've tried it was this, and how they're attached to their relative through its history. And that is such an important piece to something that's important to me, which is nostalgia and authenticity. And that's not something that you can create or fake via good marketing. If you don't have it, you just don't. And Dewars is this brand that does.
The thing that I've always noticed about brands like Dewars, especially, they become so synonymous. It's a household name that people sometimes don't always appreciate, and this is just honest, some people don't always appreciate the complexity of the spirit because there's always looking for the hot new item, the hot new it's like, but Dewar's is a staple for a reason, right? You've done something so long, so well, but you're still refining and redesigning and doing new runs of things, the double, the experimental stuff. There's like, well, it was a molten lava. There's a couple of things that come up.
Oh yeah, the Stone Toasted series, very unique product, which I would be happy to talk to you about. You're pointing at something that's really, I think, important for this brand. You know, I tell people often that Dewar's White Label, specifically a brand that was built and brought to the United States in 1899, like this whiskey is more of an American whiskey than people's favorite American whiskeys. Mm-hmm. You know, this has been enjoyed for generations of folks. And, you know, there's 2 points that I want to hammer home. If it's good enough for your grandparents, it should be good enough for you. Number one. Yeah. And these are people, you know, that were walking uphill in knee-deep snow to and from work, like people of real grit and substance that decided that this whiskey from Scotland was one that kind of met their standards at that time. And when you drink a Dewar's product, you are drinking a piece of that grit and substance from generations before. And so, like, every time I order Dewar's White Label, look, we have beautiful whiskeys, but when I order a 12-year White Label particularly, there is this feeling that kind of you get with it. And it's this kind of, if you know, you know. You know, if you know this brand and you know the generations and the work that went into getting this brand to being a global brand and one that became, you know, very famous in the United States, number one at one point for many, many years in terms of volume of sales, then you understand that you are drinking something that defines cool for me, you know? So it is more than liquid in a bottle. Despite what you might think it tastes like, you are drinking history.
Yeah. And there's a reason why it lasted the test of time, right? There's a lot of these flash in the pan, like brands have come and gone. And heck, even some brands that people thought would go nowhere have found their way out to exiting. So Dewar's is stood there strong and it continues to innovate. I think that part of the reason why I was excited to bring on Dewar's is it's one of those, once again, when I said one of those brands that often gets like, oh, it's not the new hotness. It doesn't have a celebrity necessarily attached. It doesn't have this. It's like, but what is that? What is their actual style or substance? And I'd rather have the substance. And Dewar's still Dewar's still has the style with those other experimental collections and additions and doing something new for the newer generation.
Oh, absolutely. You look at where the brand has gone in the recent years since Stephanie McLeod's, you know, first Master Blender of the Year 6 years ago, and then since then 6 years running, is really a testament to this is a brand that we respect, that we look after. We're very proud of its heritage, but where we're going is leading, not just follow it. You know, you mentioned Stone Toasted, you know, using these unique casks that are consistently toasted using magma stones, radiating heat consistently throughout from barrel to barrel from, you know, his producer using what he calls bio oak barrels at a Maison Musée, this cooperage. To use those as a first, it's outside the box. It is unique. And when folks look at it, like, I don't even understand what that is, you know? And that's what makes it unique. And if you're a collector, you know, you can go get different bottles from one distillery, or if you want to ask my opinion, why not go get something that you yourself maybe don't fully understand yet? Like I know which bottles I want on my back bar. It's unique things that I've never shown somebody or that I'm excited to share. Yeah. And that's what Stephanie's creating. You know, Dewar's is a household name. You go to any dive bar in the United States, guess what Scotch is going to be in that well? Dewar's White Label, you know, very trusted. Now, if you look at some of these really amazing places like, you know, Michelin star restaurants like Chef Gabriel Cardarella, you know, he's got our double 38 year on his back bar, a Dewar's product that's a blended malt. And then we have everything in between. And the idea is that you should explore. You should try these. And I would love to know what you think of them when you drop your guard down from saying, Dewar's, I'm familiar. What single malts do you have? But if you were to really just say, I'm going to sit down and let my palate decide whether I like this, not the marketing that's been driven in down my throat or my you know, preconceived notions, you'll be surprised at what this brand really delivers. You know, we always talk about this whiskey being a liquid to lips brand. And it's true. When people try us, you know, it's a bit of a jab, I will say. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, Dewar's, I didn't know they made whiskey this good. I'll be like, I don't know that I
Yeah.
appreciate that fully, but I understand what you mean. You're not familiar with what we're capable of. And then when they try our stuff, it really just showcases what these blends can truly be. And I think you mentioned this a bit earlier, Arthur, is that, blends, some of the finest things in the world are blends, coffees, teas, wines, cigars, flowers, like these are some of the most interesting aroma filled, nuanced things that you have out there that happen to be some of the best out there. And I think for a lot of single malt folks that aren't familiar with blends or were raised kind of to think that blends are inferior, they should be reminded that single malts are blends. Think about it. It's multiple whiskeys from one distillery, from, multiple barrels from one distillery, or it's multiple barrels from multiple distilleries. And if your complexities you're after, imagine making a whiskey sourcing casks from all over Scotland rather than just from one distillery. So there's opportunity for a blender like Stephanie to really have a big palette to say, what is it that we want to do today, rather than being guardrailed by one single set of stills. So that creates an exciting opportunity for innovation.
Yeah. And to your point, I think a lot of consumers nowadays are starting to kind of learn that just because something says single barrel or something says a single malt or something like that does not equate quality. Same thing with age statements. I will argue till I'm blue in the face that just because something is 23 years does not mean it's better than the 17
100%.
Or the 12 year or the 10 year. There's a time and a place for every spirit, but there's also nuances that don't always translate past a certain statement, or just don't necessarily have to. It doesn't equate it 100%. One of the things that I
get asked a lot. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Arthur.
All good. One of the things that I joke about is that one of my favorite whiskeys, an American whiskey, I won't say their name because I don't know.
I knew that about you.
Yeah. Is like a what would be considered a bottom shelf or something, a lower entry level shelf. I'm like, that's one of my favorite things possible. I keep it at the house at all times. People look at me.
I know what you mean. And I have those on my shelf at home as well. These underrated whiskeys that if you pour them and you just hand them to somebody like, whoa, that's good. That must be $300. Like that's $30, my friend.
That's my point.
And that argues that point really well. And I think you bring up age statements, which I wanted to cover. I get asked a lot about older whiskeys, 30, 40, 50 years. What's it like when you try them?
Yeah.
38-year blended malt we released. So it's the oldest whiskey we've ever released. We did a 37-year prior to that. Each one of them kind of having a DNA from the one before it and it paying homage to a different region. Amazing whiskey, limited collector, really showing kind of the skill of our master blender. But the way I see it is, these aren't just old whiskeys. Again, I mentioned that these are conversations between people, place, and time. But when you're drinking something like that, you're tasting decisions that were made decades ago.
Yes.
By people that had no idea who was going to eventually drink it.
100%.
Something about that you kind of have to respect. Yeah. And then you start thinking about when that liquid actually went into a cask. 38 years ago, Bon Jovi was living on a prayer. People were walking around in shoulder pads. Completely different world than the one we're sitting in now. And somehow that liquid, these older whiskeys that you try, they make its way through all of that and ended up in your glass. And I don't know that enough people are taking the time to say, that's kind of a strange thing when you think about it. Yeah. And that's what makes it interesting, not just the age. It's time you can actually sit with. It's a time capsule you're drinking. And folks will have to be like, give me the oldest. And I immediately be like, absolutely not. Yeah, that is not how you, the oldest is not the best. It is good. It is not good, better, best. It's a reflection of different moments in time. And that's why we have all this different range. It's to show you what this brand is truly capable of. And if somebody, when you offer them a 12-year Dewar's, it says, I'm good. I know Dewar's. And it said, well, have you ever had Dewar's 12? And they say, no. I say, you haven't. You really haven't had a chance to explore the entire palette of what this brand is capable of. And so I think that's what makes it really interesting. And in the age statement conversation, I really, really want folks to start thinking about, hey, what was going on in the world when this stuff was put in the cask? Then you kind of have this new lens and you open your aperture a bit to say, oh, wow, this is more like this deserves a little bit more respect than maybe I'm giving it.
Yeah. And even the the thought process behind the styles of doing things and what was important to people at that time and different methods and different, like there's a historical value to it. And part of the reason why people enjoy, like I go on tours, there's only so many times I want to hear about a mash bill. I know that. There's only so many times like, oh, well, the corn, and yes, I understand. We'll never know the secret recipe. Tell me about the people who are making it. Tell me about the time.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of like my fiance and I joke about is like a telenovela. Like there's this, because it's interesting to know what their thoughts were, who they were at that point, and then what that translated to. And there are a lot of people, you talked about it, we've spoken about it. They'll never get to try the finished product. I have no idea what this will be like. My kid's kid might have it. Because like if it's 38 years later, there's at least 2 generations in there if things are going well.
So absolutely. I think you bring up an interesting point, that I think I wish distillery tours did a bit more, and some of them will do it, but the people are really, I think that other ingredient that we're not bringing up here. And you look at one of our distilleries, Aberfeldy, which is really the spiritual home from Dewar's, not far from where John Dewar, our founder, was born. Mm-hmm. The folks that have worked there are generational too. Their parents worked there, and then their parents had worked there. And so there's a pride to it. And when I've done distillery tours in the past at our properties in Scotland, and I will bring the people out, I'll be like, what's your favorite color? Let's learn more about you. Mm-hmm. They're talking about what they're normally used to talking about, which is, our cut times and fermentation times in the process. And I'll be like, let's stop and get to know a little bit more about these individuals, because they are what makes you appreciate much, much more about these. And you have, it's like if you go to a show and you get backstage and you get to meet the band, that music immediately is one of your favorite bands because you had a chance to connect. And, our brands have the folks that work for it. Is part of the reason why I stuck here, why I've been with this brand for so long, is I love the people I work with. And that within any company or organization is one of the key pillars for a lot of folks. And for us, everybody that you come across at the Dewar's brand is passionate about it. From our VP to our master blender to an ambassador, we all want to see this brand grow in ways that exceeded our expectations. And because it has this real grit and substance of people that started it, of the same grit and substance. And we feel charged to kind of carry that through.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of people and history and what got you there, I kind of want to go back a little bit to the life before you became a brand ambassador.
Sure.
So, because that's an interesting path. And I feel like almost everyone I talk to would not necessarily jump from tour managing to now brand ambassador. You're working with people, Johnny Knoxville, Jackass crew, and then you end up a brand ambassador. So why the transition? What changed? What was the moment?
Apart from getting sick and tired of being tased in my sleep on tour buses.
Was that really happening that often to even people?
It happened from time to time. You could sleep through a taser if you were on those tours. They were exactly as their title explains. They held that title very well. And for me, that was very much. I was young. I was living in California, Mexico, part of Art part-time, and ensuring that these guys got to where they needed to go on time, making sure that everything was set up for them, making sure that the hotel rooms that were certainly trashed were taken care of. Everywhere we go, you're looking after kind of these wild animals. This didn't feel sustainable, Arthur, for me. So
you mean you didn't want to keep getting tased at 55? You didn't want to just be
right. There was a part of me that said, watching the talent, go do these things, whether it was, the Jackass guys or other MTV talent, or even some bands, Santi Gold and Trouble Andrew, two bands that I dearly love and managed as well. You start to look at it and be like, man, well, what about me? What's my talent, Wayne? Where do I fit into talent? And to be honest with you, Scotch had never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
I started working for an American whiskey after that. I had a lot of experience tour managing, and mobile distillery tour management opportunity came up. So an experiential tour popped up. And this was a very famous American whiskey brand that I kind of learned a lot about. And I had drank plenty of the stuff with Diet Coke through college and during my time in California.
Yeah.
And I started to see that there was something beyond this is a vehicle for entertainment. Right. And so I started to say, well, let's go to the distillery. And I went to the distillery and said, well, okay, this is actually, I could do this.
Mm.
And I love storytelling. Part of the, tour managing is you sit around, you hear stories, you tell stories, you get stories, you're part of them. And the storytelling aspect, I discovered that was something that I could do quite well.
Yeah.
And I leaned into kind of the more, consumer facing side of this and started sharing the story of this brand. And eventually, this brand and I parted ways. I wanted to stay in California. I went to New York with the experiential tour. I said, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. I'm going to see where this now resume takes me. I started tour managing a band. And I think I was in a tour bus in the middle of Denver when I got a phone call saying, how would you like to travel the world and talk about Scotch whiskey for a living? And I thought immediately it was one of these guys that I used to tour manage messing with me. I thought for sure this was a joke.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, right. Who the hell is this? And it was real. And 2 weeks later, I remember texting my mom, I'm going to Scotland for 6 months. And I went to Scotland, trained with our master blender, learned everything I could, and just kind of fell in love with it. And then I started hosting these large consumer tastings where I would tell the story my way. The brand has always allowed me to tell the story my way, not just regurgitating things from marketing department. Okay, what is it about this brand that you think resonates? And I would host these tastings and people could feel that I was really starting to fall in love with this brand. And I got good at storytelling and knowing my audience and understanding what it is that they want to hear, whether it's these consumers or whether it's high net worth consumers that are collecting whiskey, coming in with a bottle of $150 whiskey instead of $10,000 stuff, saying, you need to try this.
Yeah.
And you need to hear what I have to say. Or, to folks that, are used to just drinking American whiskey saying, look, let's sit down and tell some stories over this whiskey. I promise by the end of these, stories, you're going to fall in love with this brand. Dewar's has a really rich history, which I love sharing with people. And so this became something that I was like, whoa, this is not just a vehicle to get me to somewhere else. This is my career. And since then, for 16 years, traveling around, not only teaching folks how to sell it using consultative selling approaches so buyers can understand the value this brand brings to the table, but to consumers saying, look, this brand's authentic. It has a real story and the liquid credentials are there. Let's start reshaping our perception of blended Scotch and this brand Dewar's. I was lucky, as you mentioned, to be inducted in the Keepers of the Quaich, which was an incredible experience and an amazing honor. There's only about 300 or so people inducted into this.
Yeah, for those who don't know what that is at home, do you mind walking us through like what exactly that is and what it takes to get there?
Yeah, you have to be recommended by two other keepers. And a Quaich is a traditional drinking vessel. Almost looks like a dish you'd keep your change or keys in. No disrespect to the Quaich, but it was traditionally something they would pass around and drink out of because glass was so expensive back, in the late 1700s, before that in the 1800s, until they started using glass bottles. They would use these Quaichs to pass around and drink. And the keepers are, distillers, blenders. It can also be people that run the business, like VPs. And there's not a ton of ambassadors that are a part of this, but our global VP, Brian Cox, gave me some great news in 24 that I was going to be inducted. And we went to Blair Castle, which is about an hour north of Edinburgh in the town of Athol. You literally blink, you're through it. But it's a gorgeous little town with like one little deli, and it's got the Blair Castle just down the road within it as well. And, you're in this old castle, swords on the wall. I don't know how much I can get into the induction, but it is traditional. It is a big deal, and you're surrounded by other folks. You put a kilt on. And you go in and you're, in this really traditional way of being inducted to something that's really quite special to the industry. And it's really a recognition of your contributions to the industry. And I have to believe that, my approach into talking about it, to really getting folks to understand that this isn't just something that has a dollar amount on it. It's not just an age statement. It's not just regurgitating marketing things. It's somebody that is really passionate about what they do and the brand in which they represent. And I think that's why I think they decided that I might be a good fit here. One thing to mention, every year they do, and it's not many people at this. Every year they do an honorary inductee, a celebrity. I got the Rod Stewart induction, which was incredible because I got to see Rod the Bod singing some of his hits just by himself on the small little stage they created in the middle of this castle. And I got to go shake his hand and tell him how jealous my mom would be for me sitting next to him and meeting him. But what it means is much more than just meeting somebody famous. It really is a feather in the cap for somebody in my career that really just motivates you to continue to really represent the brand and the category as passionately as possible.
That's a fantastic. Congratulations. I know it's 2 years removed
Thanks.
From getting inducted.
It's still funny though, because like if I tell a family member, hey, what's new, Gabe? I got inducted to Keepers of the Quaich. Like, I have no idea what that is. I'm like, it's a big deal. Don't worry about it.
It's a big deal. I'm kind of a big deal. But like, it's fine.
It doesn't get you any discounted movie theater tickets or on food or anything.
Not with that attitude.
For those that know, we do a dinner every year.
You got to hang out in a castle, get a kilt, and see Rod Stewart. It's better than a discounted movie theater.
It's almost unbelievable in a way, you know what I mean? But every year we do a dinner in New York City, and everybody comes together, shares some whiskey and stories, and it just is a really special thing to be a part of in the industry.
Do you think part of the reason why you found so much success making that transition was kind of like the navigating chaos and navigating all the moving pieces all at once? Because it sounds a lot like herding. You said herding wild animals. I was like herding feral cats, because they have tasers. Sure. They're running around with tasers. Like, it kind of, for sure. Did that prepare you? Did that make it just like, oh, it'll be easy? Like, horror.
I think I never looked at this as going to be easy. You know, I remember when I went to Scotland, I remember saying, I've got to go, really, like, I'm starting from ground zero here. I'm young. I was young when I started. I was 28. And I think within the Scotch space, which was a very 3-piece suit, leather chair, fireplaces kind of approach still, what is this guy with zero credibility doing here? And I would go to these Single Malt Whiskey Society panels and sit on these panels with very well seasoned, very knowledgeable ambassadors and whiskey makers. I think that kind of, throwing it in with the wolves, sink or swim, is what, with the Jackass guys too, with tour managing. It's like, you better figure it out, quick, if you want to swim here. And my goal was like, all right, that's it. I'm going to be the most knowledgeable, the most passionate, and, the most educated person in this. My credibility, I'm going to prove it. Challenge me, challenge me. Single malt drinkers, challenge me. Single malt ambassadors, challenge me, because I wanted it. And I think that motivation is what got me to the space where, okay, now I can breathe. Now it's a more of, okay, how does Gabriel Cardarella feel about all of this, where the category is going, what are the trends that matter, what are the things that are important to the category, to Dewars. And so, I originally thought that, how can I not have my life disrupted by routine? This felt like a great way to do it. But as I got older, I started to really realize that I was looking after something really important, and it took a real professional to be good at this. And I think, I believe I'm the longest tenured ambassador at Bacardi, and I like to believe that commitment that I made to myself is what got me there.
That's a pretty substantial
for sure.
And
16 years, man. It's like that. I mean, I'm in New York now. We're gearing up for the U.S. Open here. So you in
what
this
is that
career,
experience like? What is your role with all that? Because it has to be. You said travel the world, but New York City is different. U.S. Open's different. These are massive events. How does that look like for you and your in this process? Being
away from your girlfriend and your dog is different. I'm here for 6 weeks. And
6 weeks.
I used to say to folks, this is an amazing career, but no plants, no pets, no girlfriends, because you make a sacrifice to the road and to the lifestyle that comes with it. I wouldn't trade this job for anything. I think it's an incredible career because it's the right brand, which I think really, really matters for folks out there. But, the U.S. Open is something that we've been a part of for the last 6 years. And that was a test in my ability to golf as well. Because I think in order to be a true pro ambassador, you've got to at least carry yourself on a golf course, which I've gotten a little bit better at. I've gotten a lot better, I'd say, over the last 6 years. But for Dewars,
I know where it's I can never venture into. I guess I'll never be a pro. All I can do is drive the cart. Gabe, all I can do is drive the cart.
I will tell you, like being out there with your friends, is, what it really is truly about. And the whiskey is just kind of, a blessing at the end of the round within that. And I think for Dewar's, it's important. We every year in our 6 years that we've been partners with the U.S. Open as the official Scotch whiskey, we released a limited release whiskey. So talk about some innovation within our portfolio. We did a 19 year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Are you familiar with why the 19?
No, but I did see that when I was doing the research on the brand.
It's a fun thing because it's tied to something real, like this is, again, like we're going into this as the official Scotch whiskey of the US Open. And every year we do a limited 19-year around it. This is a limited offering. This is not part of our core portfolio every year. Yes, it's a 19-year whiskey, but it changes via a different way we finish it. It's a higher ABV. It's a different cask finish each time. So there's always a little variation year to year, but anchored in the same idea. And the 19-year age statement isn't random. It's a nod to what we call the 19th hole, which, depending on your round, is either where you're celebrating or where you recover and mourn your round a little bit. And that's where you go have a drink to kind of seal the bond. Now, for me, not less celebrating, more recovering from the round. But either way, the whiskey tends to show up at the right time. And it's that kind of round. And that's the kind of what I like about, golf in general and our partnership within it. This isn't just, naturally, this is where whiskey and golf, they go hand in hand like they do with cigars. But with golf, it's like you can have a great day out there or a terrible one. But at the end of it, you're still on a walk with your friends. There's time to talk. There's time, or in your case, drive the cart, which is also fun. I agree. Time to, it becomes time to have a drink and the kind of thing that seals the bond. The whiskey becomes, really just part of that rhythm. So for the last 6 years, we've really tried to find ourselves to become part of this rhythm that isn't just, hey, have a nice drink. It's more about slowing down. Golf is not just about the numbers that you put on a card. It's about the time that you're spending with the people you're doing it with. And so I think the round doesn't really end at 18 for us. For us, it ends at that 19th hole, which is the whole ethos behind why we did this whiskey. Now, this year gets a really unique twist on it as well. Cask finishing you're familiar with. Yeah. Now, Stephanie is not only is she into unique cask finishes, like we talked about stone toasting, she did the world's first mezcal cask finish, an illegal mezcal cask. And I know you like your mezcal.
Yeah, definitely.
Which was a unique product. And so this year, rather than saying, well, let's do, it's in the Hamptons this year at Shinnecock, the tournament on Father's Day weekend. And this year, rather than saying, well, let's finish it in, say, a wine cask or a sherry cask or an ex-bourbon cask.
Okay.
She went hyper local and sourced Cabernet Franc casks from Wolfer Estate, which is just down the road from Shinnecock. And so this whiskey that's now finished in these Wolfer Estate casks, Cabernet Franc casks, it's got the Shinnecock logo on it. Doesn't get much more hyper local than that. And you talk about time, people, and place. Now it's really bringing that together in a much more localized format, which I think is so fun.
I love the unique ways that she's approaching it as well. Like, she's brilliant, obviously 6 years in a row, Master Distiller of the Year.
Unbelievable.
Like, it's an insane accomplishment. But even when I was looking at the normal, I could not stress enough that I know Dewar's as a base. And as you keep digging, then the double, then the finishes, and then the experimentals, and then all the other, I'm like, okay, we're not just kind of just doing the same thing over and over and over, and we're having fun with it. The fact that she went super local, one, I think is really appreciative of the surroundings and giving back to the community and kind of reinforcing that this is, we're in this together, kind of making sure that everyone is supported and part of it. And then when you get creative with thank you. And when you get creative and do the things with like Illegal Mezcal, which is a spirit of Mezcal, brings such a crazy forward note that could, for a lot of people, be, are we going to put that with, do we want to do that with whiskey? It could be off-putting for some of these traditionalists and people that don't necessarily like those finishes. But I've had Casa Nobles finished or something finished in those kind of tequila or mezcal barrels. Those things are bomb. Those are, for lack of a better way of saying it, those are a fantastic drink. Not necessarily something an everyday pour, but it is worth experimenting and having fun with.
That's the idea, is let's see where this can go.
Yeah.
Let's see where this can go. In Cabernet Franc finishing, that's not particularly new. But it creates great nuance in the whiskey, but to be able to call out the where the exact location.
To highlight the...
You go get yourself a bottle of that wine, sit it next to that Dewar's 19 year, try the two back and forth, and then you've got this, like, I'd be careful, but you've got this really unique way to approach. No way, ever.
Not even the golf cart, guys. Drink responsibly.
But these drink responsibly, indeed. But these, these are really showing, hey, we are intentional behind this. This is not marketing. This is us saying we are transparent about as much as possible with what's going into this, so that you can yourself be guided to what it is you believe this whiskey should be for you.
Yeah.
And I think that that approach is, for me as a whiskey lover first, is what I really appreciate. It is much more available in terms of where folks should be thinking when they open the bottle. Where does the conversation go after the pour, when they try it first? And it gives them much more information to do it with. And that's what makes it interesting and exciting, in my opinion.
That, and I know I kind of spoke about it really briefly, just about that supporting local as well, continuing to build that partnership and put a spotlight on a brand that is your neighbor. And very often I think the spirits industry can be rivals, right? Or there could be like this, not necessarily synergistic, like you're competing, but there is a synergy to it. There's enough people to drink around. There's enough people that are going to get to know a brand now because of Dewar's that might not have known that brand.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a great point. When you call out Wolfer Estate, it makes you curious. It brings about a bit of a curiosity. Yeah. And I think, for Dewars, one of these campaigns that we more recently start to think about how we think about this brand, is centered in the art of discovery. It's the spirit of discovery. And that is where I think the mindset for whiskey drinkers is when it really starts to get interesting, when you are open to the exploring, that it is, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And I think for Dewars, it is that mindset that we're looking for new ways to showcase not just the flex of our master blender, but hey, whiskey drinkers, here's something that maybe is worth exploring.
Exactly.
And you'll never know what you might get. And beyond that, to your point, yeah, if you're calling out the place in which you source casks, yeah, go there too.
Yeah. I think I have one of my favorite brands. They made something called the Prisoner Share, and I'm sure you know which brand I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it made me go, I've never tried that wine. And I immediately, when I found that wine, that kind of tried it. It's on my shelf now. I became a fan of not only the original whiskey brand that I was having, but now that wine is a constant pour in the house whenever we have people over. So being able to kind of open that door is also really cool.
I spent quite a lot of time within our team gathering data, whether that's consumer, commercial insights, so that I can help our field formulate great objective ways to talk about the category and how our products fit within them. And what's really interesting is if you really break it down and you look at the single malt whiskey versus blended whiskey, if you really want to say versus, what percentage do you think of people in the United States are drinking single malts versus blends?
Probably 17%. Probably low.
You're close. 70% of people are drinking blends. So, and you look at shelves and you look at back bars, a lot of folks are given the space to single malt whiskeys, and there's different variants from 3 brands. And the reality is what consumers really want is they're clearly shopping for blends, but they want premium. They do want value and they want premium. And that is when you look at a brand like Dewars, what we really have started to show up with, and you look at, say, our Dewars 12 year, we relaunched that in 22. Yeah. And this is a finished whiskey now. But, I know you're a bourbon lover. We actually finished this whiskey in first fill unrinsed bourbon casks. And we source them from Angel's Envy. And so this whiskey has...
Is that on the bottle?
No, that's not on the bottle. It says double aged in first fill bourbon cask. Now, double aging is our way of paying homage to a process that we pioneered, but it is a finishing process. These are unrinsed, literally disgorged Angel's Envy bourbon. We take them, we fill it with Dewars 12. Now, if I could brag about it from a objective credibility, and I think a lot of folks out there, your listeners, I'm sure, are aware of how you get awards in whiskey. Blind tastings, they don't It's not branded. There's no obnoxious ambassadors selling you the stuff. And Whiskey Advocate, which is what I refer to as the JD Power and Associates of spirits ratings.
I have Whiskey Advocate. There's like 7 on my shelf right now.
Yeah, they literally are. They're one of the most credible rating sources.
Yeah.
And in 22, they do their top 20 whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
And this whiskey got the number 4 spot. A $35 bottle of 12-year whiskey got the number 4 spot, competing with, many, many other whiskeys that are much older and much more expensive. And I think that goes to show that, when you let your palate aside, some of this stuff, to our point we were talking about earlier, these underrated things, and they gave it a 94-point rating, which is, it's higher rated than the usual suspects that I won't mention, whether it's malt or blends at 12 years. And so what I love about that product too is, not only is it now finished, it's got this bigger, broader depth of, insert bourbon character. Mm-hmm. It really bridges the gap between American whiskey and Scotch. I think a lot of people always think Scotch is peated or smoky, medicinal, hospital corridors, Band-Aids. Our whiskeys
corridors is the first I've heard that one. I've heard Band-Aids, but hospital corridors, that's hilarious.
I'll tell you a story about those tasting notes in a second, but we generally source our whiskeys from the Highland and Speyside region, which are known for orchard fruits, apples, oranges, raisins, pears, stone fruits, a lot of sherry-driven character as well, vanilla and then honey characteristics. So we, with Dewar's 12, you put that in a Angel's Envy cask and you finish that. Now you've plussed up all that sweetness in it. So if you're a bourbon drinker and you're saying, okay, look, Gabe, you got me. I'm gonna try some Dewar's whiskey and I'm gonna try that 12-year. If you're a bourbon drinker, I'll bet that you're going to be like, you would probably, if you were honest with me, you'd be like, damn, I didn't know I was a Scotch drinker, because these are the whiskeys that bridge that gap so well, still nuance, a lot of complexity, up to 30 different whiskeys in there. But, you've got a whiskey now that really bridges that gap well. In the tasting note thing that I wanted to bring up is there's this great whiskey writer, Charlie McLean. And Charlie is really the voice of Scotch from when I started in the industry. And I was lucky enough to have dinner with him. And we went to this place called Vintner's Rooms, which is no longer around. It's in Edinburgh, but you walk downstairs and it looks like if a cool vampire had a best whiskey collection you've ever seen. This place was just a dungeon. And I was sitting in this candlelit space with one of the best whiskey writers, him and Dave Broom. I mean, shout out Dave Broom. He's also probably my favorite modern whiskey writer. But Charlie's a storyteller. Everything he says is, Scottish accent just oozes story, and he has you listen up to everything he says. But he hands me all these whiskeys. We tried, Ardbegs from the 60s and all these different malts, Aberfeldies and all our other distilleries, Kergellicky, Altmore, Brackla, and his tasting notes, which I had yet to really wrap my head around, because, nosing a whiskey is so difficult at first to put your finger. It's like, whoa, it smells familiar. That's like how you start. Right? Mm. This smells familiar. There's something here. I can't put my finger on it. Yeah. But Charlie would hand me a whiskey. And I remember this one in particular was like an Ardbeg. And Ardbeg's phenol count is so high. This stuff is super peated. And he goes, burnt tires. I smell this and I was like, holy shit, that's burnt tires. That says, now I was like, now Charlie, why would somebody want to drink it? And he's like, you'll see. And he's right. Like down the road, you get this palate for it. Mm-hmm. These things are like salty and briny and smoky. It's like you want to eat barbecue with them sometimes. But then he'd try another whiskey. I forget which one it was. It might have been one of our old blends. And sometimes you get leather in whiskey. You get like this kind of leathery note. And he said, 66 Mustang Fastback. And I was like, all right, now you're speaking my language. I'm a Midwesterner. I like old trucks, and things like that. And I think what he showed me is that whiskey tasting notes, while they're interesting to help ground somebody in what it is that they can start thinking about, it doesn't have to be a thing. It can be a time. It can be, let's say, it reminded you of a dish that your grandmother or mom or somebody cooked, the smell of a home once, or a backyard, fresh cut grass, these types of things. And Dave Broom, this other whiskey writer, he that I mentioned earlier, he actually taught me the best way to approach this, because when you do tastings, generally speaking, if you were to start saying tasting notes, people will just say, I agree with you, probably because they're afraid to be wrong, but I try to make them, but at the end of the day, I tell them there is no wrong answer. Now, I don't want you telling me that any of our whiskeys taste like a gym bag or no smell like a gym, but I think the point is that these are very personal. And Dave Broom said, rather than thinking of a thing, first try to ground yourself in a time of year. Yeah. Is it winter? Is it spring? Is it autumn? Is it the middle of summer? These types of ways are so fun to that when you start trying to understand whiskey. It's like, throw it all out the window. It's personal to you. When you start writing them down and start revisiting the whiskeys and looking at your notes before is when you start getting good at it. But I also have a hard time with a lot of romance copy in whiskey tastings where it'll be like the sun is setting in the Scottish Highlands and a deer just happens to hop across. Like, what are we talking about here? This sounds like a Bob Ross painting. This isn't whiskey tasting notes.
Bob Ross. Yeah, but I agree with you. I do like the fact that the whiskey writer kind of spoke to times, because I hear all the time, like, this tastes like stone fruit and cherries, and I've always been very candid about, I might not have as refined a palate, but I have things that it makes me think of. It might not necessarily
that is the refined palate.
Yeah, but I guess in the descriptive nature, it's like, I don't know that I could discern necessarily when I say baking spices, I could taste cinnamon. I don't know every baking spice you're referring to. I don't know. Right. Are you talking about cardamom? Are we talking star anise? What are we talking? I remember I taste cinnamon here, but I could honestly tell you that there are times when I've had something that it reminds me of, like a feeling or summer, or like one time someone said something that resonated with me. I'm not necessarily equating this to a tasting note, but they said this tastes like after you've been outside in the sun. Like your skin. That. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't, exactly. I understood it, but I was like, I've never compared something to that, but now it's stuck in my head. That's what
I would encourage people to do that so much more, man, because there is no wrong answer. Like, there is no right. And if it creates kind of a moment for somebody to consider this differently, that's when I think you win there. Rather than saying something like fruit or stone fruit, like you're right, like apples. There's Kregeliki. Are you familiar with Kregeliki single malt?
No.
Really cool whiskey. We have 5 distilleries, single malt distilleries at Dewar's: Aberfeldy, Altmore, Royal Brackla, Kregeliki, and Devon. And Kregeliki is one of these single malts. I used to call it the bad boy of Speyside because it's right by Macallan, but Macallan's so sherried, where this distillery at Kregeliki, it's got these real short, fat stills, which makes kind of a sulfury note, like less copper contact, so it keeps that sulfur note that you have. And then it has worm tub condensers. Worm tub condensers condense the spirit vapor back down to liquid a lot slower, so it retains some of those sulfury notes. And so sulfur is like struck match. And so I would tell people that also it's a Speyside style. So you've got this real fruit note that comes forward within this whiskey. And it's pineapple that I tended to get with this whiskey. And I'd tell people, if they're like, what's the tasting note for? I'd be like, shotgun through a pineapple.
Shotgun through a pineapple?
Yeah. So like,
I'm looking up Kregeliki right now. I was like, I'm about to give you my answer.
Yeah, a lot of people pronounce it Craigellachie.
Yeah.
But it's Craig and Ella have the key. Craigellachie. But a really amazing little place. But the taste notes, like Aberfeldy, really long fermentation, tall stills, like 16-foot stills, a lot of sherry and ex-bourbon barrels. And this one is really honeyed in character. And the 21 year, one of my favorites in that whiskey. I tell people it's like pouring honey over a fireplace.
I've seen this bottle before and I've never grabbed it.
Yeah, we used to only, like when we first did proprietary bottlings in 2014, we used to only released it in prime numbers. Like 13, 17.
Why?
We had all these bizarre. Because why not? Because why not?
That's funny. Yeah, I was like, I've seen this bottle before. I've never
really cool stuff.
Yeah,
really cool. That's great. I mean, Dewar's and those malts, those are the ones they're esoteric in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, these whiskeys are, in a sense, ones that you don't often see on the back bar of, say, a neighborhood restaurant or a collector's bar, but they should. Yeah. It's because they're reaching for some of the usual suspects and they know what they know. And Scotch should be this one where, like, whiskey in general, like, if you're not familiar with it, go familiarize yourself, because these are great stuff. And if you're not, you're missing out. And when you have this mentality that, single malt whiskeys are all I drink, I can't help but like thinking, like, aren't you kind of missing the point here? I have a hard time believing somebody's a wine connoisseur if all they drink is Chardonnay.
That's rare.
And I feel the same way about whiskey.
Speaking about, I know he's kind of jumped around a bit, but I did want to talk about just Stephanie McLeod and her absolute rock star mentality of everything that she's been doing and all the work she's been doing. Having represented her creations for all these years, like, in this such a unique approach, have there been times where, like, you are surprised or there's like this wow, what the heck is this? Like, what has stood out in that process? She's engineered something incredibly complex like that 4-stage double, but has there been something that's so awe-inspiringly stood out that you just sort of like, wow, okay.
I'll tell you one that really was a challenge for me. As somebody that has to,
I'm gonna pour one.
Yeah, pour yourself a little one. What are you gonna pour?
The 12.
Give that a try. I know you like bourbon. See if that Angel's Envy comes through for you there. But that's the great starting point. I like it neat. Like that's a great mixing one. I love a highball.
Oh,
but that one's great on its own. Smart man. So the one, like, obviously my job is to be the steward of what she's creating into market. And when the Stone Toasted product came out, us as a team in the United States had a hard time really understanding, what is this? We've never heard of this, and I've been in the industry for some time and I had never heard of this, like literally brand new. This isn't just using a different type of cask. This is a totally different process. And so I really had a lot of fun, kind of almost like starting over. I had to learn something that I didn't know about process. And these, bio oak casks, they're not about, if you're toasting a barrel using a flame, I don't care how good of a cooper you are. The flame behaves how it behaves. It's going to have flare-ups and you're going to have inconsistent toast levels from barrel to barrel. They'll be close. But when you put these stones in a metal cylinder, heat them with electricity and rotate the cask around it, you can be so precise from barrel to barrel to barrel how consistently it's toasted. I did not know that when this first came. I said this feels like marketing to me.
Yeah.
But I knew that there was much more to it. Stephanie's not going to put her name on something if it isn't really going to affect the liquid in a way that is unique to what we're trying to do at Dewar's and to the industry as a whole. And so when we came out with something brand new, since then, Talisker has come out with one. I think there's something really flattering about that coming from a brand that's so well respected like that. But, that was a really, really fun challenge to say, we're talking about something that Scotch hasn't even done yet. And I had to familiarize myself with it and get credible myself so I could get out there and really educate what this is. So it was a really big challenge for me to go out there. And I have no doubt that Stephanie's going to do this to me again. And that's what keeps it really exciting, is that you don't know what we're going to do next. Only Stephanie really does. And, I've been lucky enough to try some of the samples that she's working on, some of her works in progress, if you will. And I won't reveal what those are, but there are some very exciting things out there that I've had the chance to try that I think folks are going to be really excited about. And I think that's why now is a perfect time to familiarize yourself with the brand, because where we're going is really exciting.
She looks around and is like, everyone's comfortable with what I just made? Okay, try this. And just some
Yeah.
I need you to learn this. Like, what?
That's why
I like
working for this brand has been so exciting. Yeah, that 12-year?
Yeah, that 12-year, it tastes all right. So I feel, so I obviously can tell it's finished with bourbon because there's a kind of a sweet finish at the end, but you can tell that it started as a Scotch. It's weird. It kind of rounds itself out. I still get this is a Scotch, not a bourbon, but there's a sweetness that kind of like balances it out. It's almost like, I didn't want to say like sweetened smoke kind of.
Yeah.
Like it's because you get the Scotch smoky kind of peaty kind of like, I wouldn't say peat, but kind of like a smoky taste, but the bourbon evens it, balances that out. Like I said earlier, I'm terrible at the like highlighting tasting notes, but it reminds me.
No, you're not. No, this is insight that matters. Like I hear how people feel about this brands constantly, and you are right on the money as to what we were trying to create there. This should be Dewar's, right? It says Dewar's on the bottle. We're not making a bourbon product here. When, you look at the way, bourbon drinkers today, they're already used to a certain profile. Softer, rounder, a little bit more vanilla, a lot more sweetness. Yeah. And the 12 meets them there. You pointed at those. It meets you there, but not because it's trying to be bourbon, but because of how it's built. Finishing in those first fill bourbon casks that still carry that influence. So when somebody tries it, it doesn't feel like a jump to bourbon. No. It just feels like a step between Scotch and bourbon.
Yeah.
That was the intent behind it. And when you say round, I think our whiskeys, they balancing blends is obviously quite challenging. But you're talking about a minimum age of 12. And you've got all this big character in here. These single malts are like personalities, whereas the single grain's like the glue. And you have all these personalities kind of competing for attention. And what Stephanie managed to do, no matter the age statement, is keep them all kind of in that conversation where when you revisit it, if you add a dash of water, if you add ice, it changes and develops. And so if folks have said, I've tried Dewar's 12, I want to say, well, you should try it this way. You should try it this way. Great ways to enjoy it. Are you familiar with a penicillin cocktail?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a
So
massive.
Attaboy here in the city. I might go down there today and have one.
You said you're there for 6 weeks?
Yeah.
I might be out there. Well, we were considering going out there for the Brooklyn convention.
Oh, yeah. That's in a couple weeks.
Yeah. June 9th.
Well, you get on out here, author. Let me get you a penicillin, my friend.
Okay.
Which you'll be excited to know is that Attaboy is using Dewar's 12.
I've been there before,
because they believe that character really kind of fits really well. So whether it's a cocktail, neat, or anything, the beautiful thing about Dewar's 12 is that you can mix it. Forget the only drinking it with a dash of water or neat by a fireplace rule that Scotch has had for many years. This stuff is meant to be enjoyed however you'd like to enjoy it.
One of the jokes I've made this joke because I like to make a featured cocktail using spirits that we speak about. Mezcal, you can make a cocktail. Tequila, you can make a cocktail. Bourbon, rums, vodkas. Vodka tastes like whatever's in there. Puccin, everything. Like there's a bunch of spirits that people don't. Cachaça, like all these things that people don't really mess with. You can make cocktails all day, but Scotch always seems to throw people off if you make a cocktail with it. Like, what are you talking about? The penicillin is one. I've actually made what's essentially a daiquiri with Scotch before. Like I've used Blood and Sand. I've used a couple of other like blended Scotches and all this stuff.
Blood and Sand's great.
Yeah, it's
Blood and Sand's really great with it. I mean, old fashions. Just try it.
You could do
for me, it's like
Gold Rush. A Gold Rush
for sure. Yeah, I was never a bartender. But I do have opinions of things, and I love sharing them. But
well, not a bartender, but I've drank a thing or two. Like
I'm lucky enough to get out there, and I get to try a lot of the interesting things that folks are doing out there. And I think the penicillin was one of those ones for me, even, and for folks today. That's the one that you'd be like, "Whoa, there's Scotch in this," And even a highball, man, like Dewar's White Label. Like not all whiskeys, like you probably know about bourbons, like a lot of bourbons and soda, just they don't get along well, but Dewar's White Label and soda with a lime, it's like a whiskey White Claw. It's like a light beer. It's crisp and it just works. I mean, it's Dewar's and soda. It's like chicken and waffles. You wouldn't think, but it works. Yep. Like these two are just meant to be together. And any of your listeners, next time they're out and they're just looking for something that's sessionable, that's a long drink, that's cold, Dewar's White Label or 12-year and soda with a lemon in it.
It'll be
beautiful.
The easiest cocktail video I've ever made in my life. It will be beautiful. It'll be the easiest cocktail.
No, I'd like to challenge you. I think you should make something very difficult that has some sort of
So I had some.
Tincture.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you after the show because I had some ideas. I had some fun, random ideas because we do have a series that we're working on called I should make a drink to that. So I'll give you a little.
I think that's a beautiful thing about series like that is you find yourself questioning, have I been enjoying this wrong? And that's why any cocktail, I don't care what's in it. If somebody hands me something and says you got to try this, I'm trying it because I don't know what I don't know. And Scotch is very much in that lane, especially in the cocktail world. A lot of classics that people lean to, but it fits in all sorts of different things. And I've tried some incredible cocktails out there that folks that have used the brand, folks that we've partnered with. We've made ice cream with Dewar's 12 from the penicillin to highballs, and they're all fantastic.
I mean, I feel like a slushy highball or a slushy penicillin could be a whole vibe.
I got the name for you already, Arthur. What? Penicillin.
Somebody write that down. Wait, we are writing that down. Hey, guys, that was our idea. So when me and Gabe make it big, right, the penicillin.
There you go. Patent pending, trademark, all rights reserved.
No, but all jokes aside, I think that's actually really fucking good name. Sorry.
It is.
We're an hour in. That's it. But it's like we're an hour in. I can curse. It's YouTube rules. The penicillin is a fantastic name. I'm going to probably borrow that. That's probably the
Yeah, go for it, man. Just as long as you use Dewars, you're welcome to use these
Of
ideas.
course, that's the whole goal. But I think
We've done frozen variants of it before. We've got the official cocktail of the U.S. Open as well, the lemon wedge, which is a highball, which is just soda and 12 with lemonade in it.
yeah,
More
that's the
soda than
official drink of
lemonade, and yeah, it's the official cocktail of the U.S. Open with Scotch, and we actually even can them for the Open exclusively for that market. So it's a really good opportunity for people to kind of have a commemorative thing during the tournament, but one that they can walk around in. And we all know that RTDs are doing quite well, so we're part of that game a little bit.
yeah.
But that's with Dewar's 12 in it, so it's a really elevated RTD.
I'm going to keep that in the dock for the lemon wedge. But I think that one of the things that are important when you are even using things like Scotch in a cocktail is always going to be that you don't want to hide it. The goal is not to hide the flavor that comes through. So when you're using something light like soda or something, it's just elevating it. So a good spirit doesn't need to be masked. If you're masking it, you're masking it, then it was a bad spirit to begin with, which is, hey, look, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, man. You said that well. I mean, for me, cocktails, I want to taste the spirit. Now, there's what bartenders are capable of today. If you look at places like, Attaboy or even Schmuck, Sip and Guzzle. These folks are making things that I've never even considered. Now, they're the pros, that's why. But they'll use our whiskeys in ways that never cross my mind creatively. And they're making them fun and approachable. And it's no longer bow ties and, three-piece suits. And you'll drink this because we say you will. It is, they'll do a shot and a beer as much as they'll give you something that uses so much time, effort, and creativity to create. Even like places like Bar Snack, which is just down the road from me here. What Ian's doing over there is just incredible stuff. So cocktails these days are at least getting more experiential, a bit more theater in them, but super, super crafty as well.
Yeah. I mean, you said something that made me laugh because I had an offshoot thought when you said like, oh, bow ties. And I was like just showing up with a monocle and being told,
right,
this is the best thing you've ever. Like, oh, hello.
I had to wear three-piece suits when I started, so I had to fit myself in it, and I knew in the back of my head like this isn't me. And today, the modern Scotch drinker doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. There are no rules. It's whiskey from another part of the world. It just so happens to be some of the best weather in the world for making the stuff.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we actually noted before when we talked about the difference between whiskey with a Y and whiskey with an EY, and depending on the geographical location of where it's being created and what's the difference in temperatures and all that. So we've actually done a brief little segment on that.
There's a Gaelic word for it that I love in Scotland. Do you know that word?
No.
It's like one of those words that sounds like what it is, and the word is dreich. And if somebody said it was dreich outside, I'm not so sure that I would believe it's going to be a beautiful day. And it's meant for that like rainy kind of gray day. And that weather is so consistently throughout Scotland that it's just so ideal for Asian thing.
Man, I promise you, this is going to just be a brand partnered tour when we go. My honeymoon's going to be in Europe. And we have like, oh, we want to stop at this distillery, do all that. It was like, she does want
all we need is a black car to get there and a VIP tour. We'll take care of you out there. Aberfeldy is one of those places that I would go see even if I weren't in the Scotch. Like there's this amazing hike, the Berks of Aberfeldy. People are like whitewater rafting and fishing and hiking. It's just this gorgeous little, quintessential Scottish town. But you need recommendations on a good chippy, I got you.
I 100% will let you know because I definitely need it.
I got a whole list.
Man, you have, by the way, I'm jealous. You're in New York for 6 weeks where there's like a list of the world's 50 best bars and like 10 of them are near you. Like it is a wild situation. So definitely I just want to bring up shouts to Attaboy. If you do like tiki cocktails, we have really good friends at Paradise Lost. So if you stop in, let me know and let them know that Arthur from the show sent you. Look for
Arthur. They did a frozen penicillin once, I think.
Really?
Are they in Brooklyn?
They are no. I thought they were Midtown Manhattan. Paradise.
Maybe Lost? I'm thinking of somewhere else.
Oh, good. But if you do go, let me know because I know people there and they're really good people.
Oh, I will.
But we are getting towards that end. I have two closing questions. I have two of my favorite questions. It's the desert island dram. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only bring one expression of the Dewar's portfolio, past, present, or rare limited edition, what is the bottle and why?
I mean, desert island. Well, look, water first. That's the
Everything else
responsible,
is you're just by
responsible answer.
yourself.
Just the key. You got to keep the story going a little longer,
Yeah.
so I'm going to need some water. After that, like I want a
One.
bottle of Dewar's White Label from like the 50s.
Oh.
Back then, the labels look like old newspapers. And the liquid is so cool because they were using single malt distillers, were aging predominantly in ex-sherry barrels.
Mm.
And these things were peated whiskeys as well. But when you combine a peated whiskey with sherry, we did a 32 year, that won best whiskey in the world in our double double range. These whiskeys taste like sweet, smoky barbecue sauce, so these are incredible. I'd like that over ice. But
Okay.
in my version of this island, there's an unreasonable amount of coconuts. So I'm going to cut those open and I'm going to top that off with coconut water. And if you've never had that, Arthur, go to the Caribbean, go to Puerto Rico. When I go there, you will find out that coconut water and whiskey, Scotch particularly, is what they've been drinking it that way for generations on islands. So they're probably on to something.
I'm looking at the old white label, and it's such a very different label.
Yeah, it's literally like an old newspaper. They're so cool. I've got some, like, occasionally I'll see them at auctions and I'll pick them up and I'll open them at the right time, with folks, friends, and family. But I think for me, yeah, that's got to be it. Water for sure. Hopefully, there's a little bit of ice, coconut
Everything
water,
else will be
Dewar's White Label. I'd be sound as a pound.
That is a fantastic answer. And honestly, the 50s made it a very unique. And I have coconut water. You just gave me.
I'm gonna think about this for the next 30 minutes. My answer may change, but that feels pretty good. That
Shoot
one.
me a message if it changes. Like
All right.
Amending the show. Like, no. And last but not least, I do like asking people, is one of my favorite questions. It is, what is your deathbed cocktail and why?
Oh my God, that's so hard.
And the reason why I ask is you'll be surprised what people really, because I'll tell you after, but I've had bartenders that will tell me, I want a Busch Light, because they spend so much time making beer, making drinks and all this, that they're like, I just want something simple. Like,
this is going to be off a little bit from a cocktail, but one of my fondest things, like for me, it's just like, you think about deathbed, you think about wanting your family around you, and I think some of the best conversations I've had is, with my family over a cup of coffee in the morning, whether we're at the lake together, even when my grandmothers were around. It's like you start your day with what's the day going to be like? You laugh a little bit over a cup of coffee. We're Italians, we're always laughing, everybody's talking over each other. And, I'd love maybe some Irish coffee, but I'll just take the cup of coffee and, that family, like remembering those conversations around them. But man, if it had to be alcohol, and this is not on brand, this is personal, it's a Busch Light.
Did I really? Did I hit that?
Yeah, dude, like, I love a Busch. Like, it's funny, when I want a beer, sometimes I'll literally go to the bar and just like, please give me something ignorable. And the sweet is never as sweet without the sour. These chefs that are Michelin chefs, or these folks that work at great restaurants,
like a peanut butter
the reason
sandwich.
they go out and eat a cheeseburger after work is because they're tired of being surrounded by their food,
Mm-hmm.
as good as it might be. And so I feel that very much so. So let's say the death of my career might be just, I've had all the whiskey. Give me the Busch Light.
Cheers to that. I like that answer. I like you know what, it's just, I'm done. That's what I want. No, but I appreciate you getting on with me, Gabe. I know that,
man, it's been a pleasure. It's honestly been a bit like therapy, Arthur. You're good at this.
I appreciate that, man. You were great as a guest, man, and I know that you have a lot more information, so if you ever want to come back on, I do still want to do the tasting. I know we're just limited, so we probably connect later on and see if you want to go through. I'll see if I can even get my hands on the Lava Rock one. I don't know.
Yeah, the Stone Toasted. Look, man, I think, at your leisure, try that 15. That's Stephanie's first edition of the portfolio. A 15-year whiskey you don't see very often. Think of it as soft but long finish.
We got time for one.
I mean, you could add them in.
No, we got time for one more.
Cut something else out.
Go. Well, we got time for one more.
The 15-year special, because you don't see many 15-year whiskeys, and that was Stephanie's first addition to the portfolio. It's funny, in China years ago we did a 2010. It was a blended malt 15-year, because a lot of the way that they enjoyed their whiskey was with green tea. Now this is not a blended malt, But I think Stephanie wanted to adapt some of that flavor profile, that sweeter profile that carries a bit more body into a 15-year whiskey, which you just don't typically see on the shelf. So when you try it, you'll find that, okay, this is maybe lighter than 12 initially. But what you'll find is that the finish extends beyond the 12-year. Age obviously playing a big role there. So, there's drinking whiskey and there's thinking whiskey. That 12-year white label drinking whiskeys. And then the 15-year, when you get up into our double, 4-stage age stuff, these whiskeys tend to really show much more of the personality over time.
This has more spice. And I don't know if it's because,
for sure.
I don't know if it's because the 12-year has that bourbon finish, but you can get a little bit more bite and kick to this. That you can tell that spicy note at the end, where the 12 just kind of like softened. It's like, hey.
I mean, I think a lot of folks often think too with blends like that the older whiskey is just an older version of the whiskey before it. This is its own unique blend. Now we do have a house style, but Stephanie's not just aging the last whiskey longer. This you can see it's lighter in color than the 12-year.
That's what I was looking at too.
So a lot of refill casks here as well. But yeah, this whiskey, was Stephanie's first addition to the portfolio, so it's certainly near and dear to her. But as a brand, we hadn't had a 15-year until she created this in around 2014.
We got time. We'll take 15 more minutes to finish this, and we'll try the 21 because I feel like the listeners are older. I just don't want to be conscious of your time.
No, I'm good. I'm not doing anything here. I might go down to
Attaboys.
I don't know.
You gotta go
Attaboy.
Because now you have to have a drink for me, and you have
Death
to send
&
me
Co.
the
is
picture.
literally around the corner.
Are you serious? I love Death &
Yeah.
Co.
Place is a staple.
So, I have one question. It's kind of about the series. So I think as we go through this, it might be a complicated question, but we're going to try to give you some time. The series I'm making is called I'm like, hey, I should make a drink to that. Where I'm randomly inspired by media, books, something, and I'm going to make a drink based off of it. Perfect example is I made a drink. I don't know much of a music head you are. I picked a hip hop person. I picked Fetty Wap, and he has a song where he uses a line, making bacon pies with my baby. So I made a cocktail using cognac, apple spice simple syrup, some other ingredients, and it's the garnish is an apple pie from McDonald's because I made the joke, I don't know how to bake and I'm not doing that for a garnish. And I threw the
cocktail. That's good. That's good. That sounds like that's like the experiential stuff I'm talking about, man. Yeah. That stuff's really cool.
So what cocktail or what either movie or song would you want to see as a cocktail? I also do movies and TV shows, but
oh man, okay. I got two answers here. So my favorite movie is Interstellar. I just love that movie so much, man.
Okay.
There's something about that movie that I don't know. It's a space for some reason. Like I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but that movie just got me, man. I could watch that movie over and over. I love it so much.
Okay.
So I don't know where the lane is there because there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of burning cornfields, and there's a lot of space. So I'm not sure what you got to work with there, but you got Matthew McConaughey, and he's sweet as it gets.
So I have an idea.
All right, so you got an idea.
Yeah, so you said Matthew McConaughey. So he's works with a specific bourbon brand. So we might use a bourbon brand. The burning corn, you could do a corn mashed build or a corn spirit. And you could use that with either a smoked taste or something like that and kind of put that together. And you can have a garnish that's kind of like Space Rocks, which will be kind of either a rim or like rock candy on the side.
Well, here's the thought. It's
just an early idea.
There's dust in that movie quite a lot, and you could do on the rim, I don't know, brown sugar or something, dusting of that. That would be funny. An Interstellar cocktail would be
fun,
incredible. Okay, music now. There's one interesting thing about me that my attachment to music is one of my really good friends is a drummer for a band that has just been a rocket ship of success. He's from Columbus, Ohio. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. His name's Franz Lyons. He's a bass player in a band called Turnstile. And Turnstile, I was in LA for their after party where they won 2 Grammys this year. They are, a hardcore band from Baltimore mostly. Franz is from Columbus, but these guys are the sweetest guys in the world and just humble but just really good family oriented, friend oriented, looking after people, salt of the earth, good guys that, despite all this fame, they still remain so. And their music just makes you feel good. It makes you want to hug the people next to you and dance around and not look at your phone. And they're just so good. And the last two albums that they put out, I love all of their albums. Their earlier stuff for me at the gym, the later stuff that they have, it's like when you're driving with the windows down, or on a run in the summer. These guys just, make you feel good, no matter what song you listen to. So I would have to choose them right now because they're on my mind constantly.
I have to do more research on that one, but
listen to Turnstile, man. You listen to them, you will love it.
All right, I'm going to look at it and see what I can.
You're going to hit me up and you're going to text me and be like, "You were right."
Yeah? I'm going to shoot you a message because I'm going to need to know what their favorite spirit is too, because that's part of the series. I need to make a connection.
Okay, cool. I've given them some Dewars throughout the years.
If you want,
I've given them some Dewars.
The cocktail will be based off Dewars, and we'll see what song from them stands out to me.
Oh man, that'd be sweet.
All right, perfect. And I do want to give a shout out to Kelly for putting us together, but also I want you to see something. This is not this is my 12.
Okay. Is that your 15?
Yes.
Get the big dog.
Yes. Thanks, Kelly, for hooking us up with the biggest bottle I have in this house.
Look, we had Dewars. Kelly obviously knows this, that we like sharing. So there's plenty of Dewars 15 and 12 there for you to share.
Yeah. Big shout out to her. It was a surprise. I was like, oh, okay, this is not a game.
But we like taking care of folks, man.
It was a pleasure having you on, Gabe. And
mine too, Arthur. I repeat, I'd love to come back. When you'll have me. But this was really great, man. You're really a pro. What you do, respect the work that you're doing here on this podcast very much, and the guests that you've had on it. I'm really honored to be a part of it, man.
Of course, man. It was an honor having you. I know that you have been in the game for a minute, so for sure, a plethora of knowledge. And Dewars is a highly recognized and respected name. So it was a pleasure. Even getting to pick your brain for some time and getting to know more about the process and everything that you guys have been going through.
Our pleasure, man. Look, if anybody takes anything away from this at all, it is go try our stuff. If you see it on the shelf, try it. You will enjoy it. It is a liquid lips brand that, with a ton of heritage and history. And I love sharing it and want to hear that more folks are out there just letting their palate decide what it is they like.
100%. Tell people where they can find you, where they can support you, and where they can keep an eye on, everything Dewars has got going on.
Yeah, man. So you can keep an eye on my antics personally and professionally on Instagram at G Cardarella. Just the first initial, my first name, my last name. You see a lot of videos of my dog and the food I eat and some of the adventures within the whiskey space as well. Dewars has its Instagram page as well. You're welcome to follow that in the U.S. and globally, and keep an eye on the U.S. Open right around the corner. We're going to be there. Awesome.
When's the U.S. Open again?
Father's Day weekend. So it's the week of the 16th of June through that entire week, man. Great golf, good whiskey. Be right out in Shinnecock in the Hamptons this year.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, for everyone listening at home, please, drink responsibly, pour up something nice and pour up something new. Try it. Give the, especially if you are unfamiliar with their game. I'm trying them right now in real life, and they're fantastic. The 15 surprised me. That 12 might have me. for
yes, sir. Some time. I hear that a lot.
But make sure that you're liking, subscribe, share with your friends, pour up something nice and make some memories. And remember, always drink responsibly. At Arthur at Last Call, we're going to be releasing that series for the summer as I should make a drink to that. And hopefully you guys enjoy. But in the meantime, if there are cocktail ideas, recipes that you would like to see, or something that you're like, hey, you should try this out because I want to get your thoughts, let me know and I'll pick it up if I can. Always looking to try something new. Take care of yourselves. Be good. And see you guys next week. Bye, guys. There's nothing quite like mixing up a refreshing summer cocktail or pouring a neat glass of your favorite spirit and stepping out into your patio as the sun goes down. But down here in Central Florida, we all know the one thing that could instantly ruin that perfect evening vibe: mosquitoes. You're just trying to enjoy the tasting notes, and instead you're swatting away the local wildlife. That's why I'm thrilled to partner with Burn Termite and Pest Control. Summer is right around the corner, and Burn is here to help you reclaim your backyard. Their targeted mosquito treatments are exactly what you need to keep your outdoor spaces comfortable, relaxing, and bite-free all summer long. So don't let bugs crash your next patio happy hour. Give the local experts at Burn Termite and Pest Control a call today at 321-297-7985 to get your yard summer ready. Again, that's 321-297-7985. Call Burn Termite and Pest Control, and cheers to a pest-free summer.